right. So, morning everyone. So we're going to talk during the next 10 minutes about how to set up MDU environment network for 6,000 plus tenants. So if we have a look on how it works today in most MDU environment, we have a building with many tenants inside, and usually each tenant is going to purchase its own, subscribe its own ISP services for its Wi-Fi, and everybody is going to have his own access point deployed inside this room. We're going to have no correlation between APs. It's going to be far west there. And, oh, what the hell? And when you have too many Wi-Fi like that, you're going to have too much interference. Performance won't be good. Even from a user perspective, when you want to select your Wi-Fi, you're going to have some crazy names with a lot of letters, not of numbers, nothing's personalized, very complex for users. And from an administrative perspective, it could be even worse. Last point with this kind of, last issue with this kind of deployment is the fact that when you go a bit too far from your apartment, well, you won't have any service anymore because your Wi-Fi is only distributed across by your box at home, and your neighbors won't do that. So, that's basic model. And what the property owner can do actually to improve service for the tenant would be to do a real proper managed network services, hiring some of our guys to create a real Wi-Fi just with less APs, but proper one, simple one with just a single SSID. Then you got a good Wi-Fi, good environment, and that's perfect. Next step will be to be able to deploy a private network for everybody. So we're going to make sure that between each tenant, the equipment won't be able to talk. So apartment 101 won't be able to talk with apartment 102, for example. And to do so, we're going to use VLAN. We're going to use VLAN, and we're going to put each tenant in its own VLAN. The way to do so, we're going to do an authentication. Could be by radius, but it's a bit complex for residential environments. So, as it was just said 2 sessions ago, we can use this kind of personal PS key to make sure that each apartment has its own PS key and will be set into its own VLAN. And by doing so, we're also able to, how can I say that? Provide the same service all across the estates. So you're not limited anymore to your apartment. You can move to the common area. You can go to the pool area and still watching your baby, which remain on your room or your apartment. And like it was just next to you, you'll be able to watch the camera. Or you're still able to play video games with your brother, which remain into the apartment, and you are close to the swimming pool. So this could look as a good model. Issue here is that when we play with VLAN, well, we're going to have some limits. And limits arise when you deploy in too big environment with big properties and a lot of apartments. The reason is that each VLAN, so each apartment, will require its own DHCP server, so with a GPG pool. It will require a router interface. It will require net services. You're going to propagate the VLAN all across the network. So when you have many tenants, so just 25 of them, but when you have hundreds, 1,000, you're going to have something very complex to manage, very hard to manage. And that could be the first limitation. The second limitation is the title of this session was building an environment for 6,000 of people. And as you're all aware, when you go with VLAN, you are limited to 4K VLAN, no more than that. And actually, 4K is the limit by the protocol, but many APs, many switching are not able to support 4K VLAN at the same time, for sure. So what could be the next step? How can you improve that? Well, you're going to introduce VXLAN. I don't know if you're aware of what is VXLAN, but basically, VXLAN is a network virtualization technology that attempts to address some scalability problem, especially in cloud environments, data centers, where the 4K limit of VLAN are way too short, and they need to go way above 4K. So basically, what does VXLAN? So VXLAN stands for Virtual Extensible LAN. The concept is that you're able to create some kind of layer 2 tunnel in between 2 steps, 2 endpoints, that we name VTEP. So basically, if I have a client A on the side and a client B on the other side, what I want to do is, well, and in between I have layer 3 rooming. So when I send a packet from client A to client B is going to go up to the VTP. And the VTP will say, okay, right, client B is just after the VTP2. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the FRAM, and I'm going to put it into a datagram as a payload. And so this way, I'm able to push it over there. And as you can notice, so inside the datagram, I have an information named the VNI, which is a VXLAN network identifier. This is like the VLAN ID, but for VXLAN. Once I reach the VTP2, what I'm going to do, the VTP2 will strip out the FRAM and will forward it to the user B. That way, we have some kind of layer 2 tunnel in between a layer 3 environment. So, that being said, how can I use it in my MDU environment? Well, you can imagine something a bit different from a data center, but basically, you're going to have your device on the left, and they're going to reach the network through network access device, which is access point, or could be switches. And those devices are going to be a VTP. It's going to cross all the LAN of the estate of the campus, and you're going to reach endpoint for the VXLAN tunnel. So we're going to be able to deliver some other service than just the VTP. It's going to also be able to provide DHCP for a device, routing for device, this kind of stuff. The nice part here is that your equipment in middle between the AP access point or the access device and the VTP on the right are not aware of, does not have to support VXLAN. Actually, they just see datagram coming through and don't realize that this is about VXLAN. So it's very transparent, very easy to deploy on a legacy network. And concretely, what does it bring to you? Well, you will be able to have a single DHCP pool for the whole network. And since user will be segmented through VNI, even if they have, as you can see, IP address very similar on the same subnet, and it's actually even cross since you have the .11, which is on VNI 30, the .10 on VLAN 10, we still be able, through the VXLAN technology implementation, to segment and to have some micro-segmentation of these different apartments. And so you'll be able to have a solution way more easy to deploy, maintain, since you will just rely on one routers, one DHCP pool, and it's going to be way more easier for you to deploy a system. And of course, you won't be limited to the 4K tenant due to the limitation of the VLAN. You're going to be able to go up to 60 million, which is quite big. So the last point when you do MDU deployment is to keep it simple from a management perspective. If you have something too complex, it won't work. People won't use it, won't maintain it, and it's going to be unusable. So the first thing to understand and to do is when you do such deployment, you need to make sure that the implementation will be very simple or not much more complex that can be done with VLAN. And the solution that you're going to use need to automate most of the tasks to make it as simple as it is to maintain and for the admin team. The other point is, if we go about simplicity, is to make sure that many tasks, such as assigning a new unit to a new tenant, changing password, making upgrade, changing your environment, all the stuff that does require technical skill, IT skill, should be done by external person. And those person could be the tenant itself or the property manager. So be able to set up an interface for those guys to allow them to easily manage the system and do most of the tasks and just rely on network IT team for very techy stuff will help a lot and provide a lot of flexibility in your management. So just to finish with a concrete example, this kind of solution exists with different vendors, and on our side, we name that Ruckus Network Segmentation. It's something very easy to set up, and basically, you do have the VXLAN set up between access point and the data plane. That data plane is also going to be able to provide the DHCP for your system. So yeah, sorry. You can deploy it on top of an existing system since we don't need to have the existing system supporting VXLAN, as I just said. And the data plane will be the role of DHCP, NAT services to make more easier, and CloudPass with Smart Zone will be in charge of managing the web interface for the tenant, for the owner properties, and provide easy way to distribute key, onboard system, onboard device, managing a system, and for the property to create a sign unique to specific tenant. Thank you very much.